And as a leader, you will always be thinking about your team. How are they doing? How are they progressing? Are they under enough stress to keep them performing well? So I've just finished watching Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, and it dawned on me, as much as we're wowed by the incredible stunts that Tom Cruise pulls off, that in between the bullets and bombs, there are some hidden leadership secrets tucked away in the style of Ethan Hunt that will make you look at these movies very differently. So here are 6 lessons that I've uncovered from the latest in the Mission Impossible series with Tom Cruise. Oh, and if you've not watched the movie, there will be spoilers in this video. So the first leadership lesson is that Tom Cruise, aka Ethan Hunt, cares about his team more than he does himself. And actually, this is a continual theme throughout the Mission Impossible movies and is seen by his enemies as a bit of an Achilles heel. So if they want to get to Tom Cruise, they get to one of his friends, his girlfriend, his wife, and so on. But in Dead Reckoning, this leadership quality is exemplified where Hayley Atwell, one of the female leads, has just been saved by Tom Cruise, and she looks at him and says, "Why do you care so much? You don't even know me." And Tom Cruise, Ethan Hunt, looks over at Luther. Luther looks back as if to say, "Why does that even matter? You're a person, you're in danger, and us saving you is a default. You being safe is something that we just do naturally." Because Tom Cruise and Luther, they're both leading the IMF, not the International Monetary Fund, but the Impossible Mission Force. Bit of an 80s name, but we'll go with it. But what it says is that you don't owe me anything. That's what the actress was trying to say. And they were like, well, you're part of the team now and you're in danger, so we are going to make sure that you are safe. And as a leader, you will always be thinking about your team. How are they doing? How are they progressing? Are they under enough stress to keep them performing well? What about their well-being? Have they gone through the necessary training? Are they on a career trajectory that is empowering to them and developing them as people? And are you keeping them in a safe working environment? So it's a great analogy between the leadership in the movie Dead Reckoning and what happens in real life leadership. Ethan Hunt is always leading from the front. See what I did there? But Tom Cruise is famous for his running style. He's running left, he's running right, he's running up buildings, and he's running down buildings. But he's not just running for no reason. He's setting the pace for the rest of the Impossible Mission Force. And leading from the front is often him taking the lead in situations where the rest of them don't know what to do, but he's worked out within milliseconds a way in which they can save the day, and he's off. There's a really great scene in one of the Impossible Mission movies where a plane is about to take off, the package is on the plane, and they need to recover this. Everything's going wrong, the rest of the team don't know what to do, and out of nowhere springs Tom Cruise. He runs down the hill and jumps on the side of the plane. It's one of Tom's most famous stunts, hanging off the side of the plane whilst Benji is trying to open one of the doors. So what does this mean for leaders on a day-to-day basis? It's not uncommon for things to go wrong, for members of your team to be at a loss of what to do next. But as a leader, your job is to be able to think fast, come up with solutions, and if your team doesn't know how to implement those solutions or get them going, that you can get the ball rolling and show them the way. And don't forget to stay with me till the end of the video where I share the most important leadership lesson that I've learned from Ethan Hunt. So early on in Dead Reckoning, there's a part where Tom Cruise is chasing Hayley Atwell because she's got the key to the rogue AI that's going to take over the world. And whilst that's happening, Benji identifies that there's a piece of luggage which has a bomb in it. So Benji and Luther decide that they're going to run after this bomb, find where it is in the airport, but they're not going to tell Ethan Hunt. So as time goes on, Benji's in front of the bomb, he's trying to decode it, and Benji doesn't have an answer to one of the questions that the AI is trying to give him so that he can stop the timer, and he has to ask Ethan for advice on the answer to this question. Ethan Hunt then says, "Why didn't you tell me about the bomb?" And they were like, "Well, we thought you were busy." And Ethan then says, "Telling me about a nuclear bomb is absolutely something you should have told me." They now only have 20 seconds. Ethan then asks, "How long have we got before the bomb goes off?" Benji says 20 seconds. He then looks at the riddle once more and he figures it out. And what this says to me is that actually, in that moment, Ethan Hunt lost his cool. And what he didn't give the team credit for is that they had enough skills and experience to be able to stop the timer on the bomb, which they did, and they didn't need to bother him about it because he had other stuff going on. So as a leader, what do we learn from this? If you have given your team enough autonomy and enough training and enough experience about the things that they need to do, they absolutely do not have to bring every urgent moment to your desk. And that you should give them the bandwidth to solve important problems, because once they've done that once, it'll give them the confidence to do it over and over again, and it relieves you from day-to-day issues, big or small. So there's a great scene in Dead Reckoning where Benji, played by Simon Pegg, who I absolutely love, is in an automated vehicle, I think it's a BMW, and he moves into autopilot so that he can hack into a satellite somewhere. And whilst he's doing that, Tom Cruise, Ethan Hunt, is asking him the coordinates whilst he's riding his bike so he can jump onto the train. So he's going up this hill and Benji is trying to get him in position, and Ethan is like, when do I stop going up? When do I start going down so I can jump on the train? So Benji's like, just keep going. I've got this in hand. Don't worry about it. And it gets to a point where Tom Cruise is just really frustrated. And he's like, Benji, what am I doing? And Benji stops and says, Ethan, I'm really stressed out. I'm trying my best to help you. And he's doing that whilst Ethan is on top of this mountain with all of the elements blowing him left and right. And Simon Pegg is sitting in the comfort of this automated vehicle with a laptop on him. And, you know, the situation of stress between the both of them clearly isn't the same, but it's the first time in all of the Mission Impossible movies that you kind of see Simon Pegg, Benji, shouting at Ethan Hunt. So Ethan doesn't get angry, he doesn't shout back at Benji, he calms himself, takes a look around because he needs to get clear of the mountain, and he finds a point on the cliff where he could take the bike and do the famous jump that we see in the trailer. And in that moment, what you realize is that Tom Cruise didn't have time to argue back with Benji, but also he saw that Benji was stressed out of character, and Tom Cruise probably realized that and thought, well, look, this guy is super stressed and he's doing his best. He's telling me he's doing his best. So there's no point me getting into a back and forth with him. I just need to solve this problem. And that's what he went on to do. And as a leader, this is what's going to happen. Benji was outside of his comfort zone. He was doing something he hadn't done before. He was in a super pressured environment and he snapped for a minute. But as a leader, Ethan Hunt didn't snap back. He kept his composure and he thought about the next task at hand to move the needle forward on his mission. Now, as a leader, one of the things we really enjoy in the Mission Impossible films is Ethan Hunt's ability to get his team to believe in unbelievable ideas. And one of my favorites is in Mission Impossible 3, when they have to save his wife, Julie, his newlywed wife, from the bad guys. I think they're somewhere in the Far East, and they've got this impossible task of breaking into an unbreakable building. And in that moment, Tom Cruise grabs a Sharpie and he starts writing these calculations on the window of this super tall building, and he's doing all kinds of mathematical acrobatics to work out the trajectory and the wind speed and the height and the velocity so that he can jump from one building to the next. He can leap off and land safely, right? And it looks like just this thing which could just never happen. And he turns around to the team and he says, look, my wife is gonna be killed, and if I don't get over there, are you with me or not? And in that moment, they looked and realized the commitment that Tom Cruise had, that Ethan Hunt had to saving his wife is all they needed. Whether or not he got the maths right and whether the wind was going to blow in the right direction didn't matter. It was the conviction that Tom Cruise had as a leader which got the team to buy in to his crazy idea. And then there's this really funny moment when Tom Cruise pulls off the stunt and Luther is looking through the binoculars as Tom Cruise lands, and Tom Cruise is like, well, yeah, I've landed, I'm here, I'm safe. And Luther turns and he says, he made it. And then he withholds his excitement. He said, I knew he'd make it, even though none of them really did. And for me, the most important leadership quality that Ethan Hunt exhibits in these Mission Impossible movies is that he is shown to be the hero. However, unlike, say, a James Bond movie, which I absolutely love as a Brit, I think James Bond is amazing. I do think that James Bond and Ethan Hunt are very different characters, even though they are agents. James Bond is more like a solo tech entrepreneur doing most of the stuff on his own when he's starting. Tom Cruise is actually leader because he's leading the Impossible Mission Force. James Bond doesn't really have a team around him per se. But what Tom Cruise does in the movies, because it's a film, he has to be the hero. He has to save the day. great. And actually, sometimes in business and as a leader, you do have to do that. But on a day-to-day basis, the thing that you really have to do, which is what Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt is able to do, is to empower the team so that they have the capability to save the day collectively. And so even though we see these moments where Tom Cruise is the obvious superhero in the film, that's not a sustainable place for any leader to be, but really it's about how do you imbue similar leadership skills and qualities in your team so that they can lead their business units, the projects that they've got to run, the things that they've got to do, so that you are left to do the things that only you as the leader can do, you as the entrepreneur with your specific skill set. So for example, in Ultra Education, the things that I can only do are mainly the relationship building bits, the big strategy thinking and leaning into what we might do in the future. That's what I'm good at. And other people in the team are just as good or better than me in other ways. And I empower them to be able to do that, allow them to make mistakes and allow them to grow into the leaders that I want them to be, so that it gives me the bandwidth and the time to take the business forward. And I think Ethan Hunt in the Impossible Mission Force does an extremely good job of that. So it isn't about being the superhero leader all the time, but it really is about turning the rest of your team into superheroes themselves. But if you watch Dead Reckoning, what do you think? What other leadership qualities do you think Ethan Hunt and maybe even some of the other characters in the Impossible Mission Force demonstrate throughout all of the series of Mission Impossible movies? Let me know in the comments below. And that's it for today's video. I'll catch you next time. Ultra and out.